Hello, everyone, and welcome to Performance Anxiety's 10th online reading event. My name is Tom Snarsky, and I'm here with Asparagus B. Snarsky, my co-host tonight, and I'm very happy to be the MC of tonight's reading. Asparagus and myself don't mean to make light of this, but it's a really difficult time for a lot of people the world over right now between the economic and the social crises precipitated by the coronavirus. So tonight's event is about celebrating a poetic light who helped make our world more legible and perhaps easier to bear for her readers. Our reading tonight is dedicated in memory of the poet Molly Brodak. Each of our readers this evening will be sharing a selection of their own work along with a poem of Molly's that speaks to them. We're grateful to have Molly present with us here by way of her luminous poems. In case you haven't listened in before, Performance Anxiety is an online reading series hosted via Skype on the third Thursday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. If you're a poet or writer who'd be interested in sharing your work at a future event, you're more than welcome to get in touch with us. I'm at Tom Snarsky on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email me at tomsnarsky, TOMSNARSKY, @gmail.com. You can also get in touch with Kristen Garth, the other co-organizer of the series. I'll let you know how when she shares her poems with us in just a minute. Because of the social distancing many of us have found ourselves practicing in recent weeks, we're hoping to host readings a little more often in the near future, but more on that later tonight. At each of our events, we usually feature 10 readers who each have up to 5 minutes to share a selection of their writing with us. We have folks reading live in the Skype call, but in the spirit of the name Performance Anxiety, sometimes our readers choose to share their work via other pre-recorded means. And our last couple readers will share their work and/or the poem they chose of Molly's in just this way. I'm really excited to start us off this evening by sharing my favorite Molly Brodak poem, first published in Coconut Poetry, and that I still vividly remember reading for the first time. This poem is called "To the Other Person I Am Right Before I Fall Asleep." Yet it's close. It feels like a new suit or sheet. You are good to everyone, and you don't care. Knowing pillows of smoke and a yawn's opulence. I am happy for you. I wish you would go away and recognize your dad, that tiny figure raking leaves, and hear me out, and hear me out. Listen. And following Molly's directive, I'd like for us all to listen to our first reader of the evening, who I'm happy to introduce also as the co-organizer of Performance Anxiety, Kristen Garth. Kristen Garth is a pushcart, Best of the Net, and Riesling-nominated sonnet stalker. Her sonnets have stalked journals like Glass, Yes, 521, Luna Luna, and more. She is the author of 15 books of poetry, including Pink Plastic House and Shut Your Eyes, Succubi from Maverick Duck Press, Crow Carriage and Candy Cigarette Woman Child Noir from the Hedgehog Poetry Press, Flutter Southern Gothic Fever Dream from Twisted Press, and The Meadow forthcoming from APEP Publications, which I had the privilege of reviewing a while ago. She's the founder of Pink Plastic House, a tiny journal, and the co-founder of Performance Anxiety, this online poetry reading series. Take it away, Kristen. Thank you so much for being here tonight, as always.
Thanks. I've gotten where I'm not so nervous about reading anymore, but then today I absolutely feel nervous in this moment because I'm reading somebody else's poems. It was obviously such a special person, and anyway, I'm reading Mild Peril by Molly to start. I might find a blue-black sky when I'm ready to feel all the moments, not just the sleazy important ones. To uncoil the wild little everything inside this now, which I am crouching to fit into. 3:47 a.m. in the dooryard. Providence, resolve, alcohol. I am afraid of my dreams. Maybe a mourning dove wheezes out of a hedge, lungs throb by its own wings. They build bad nests, eggs often slip out. Stupid and faithful, I left fondness up to you, and now we'll burn that bridge when we come to it. I asked what is going to happen, and he said, it's happening. And The rest of the poems that I'm reading come from this new book that I'm publishing with APEP Publications called The Meadow, and it's a very personal book, and it's about some years that I was highly involved in the BDSM community, and I was a submissive, and it kind of follows my process of how I got there, and I'm going to read a few poems, some sonnets, and a couple of small poems from that. Small town. It gets around in smaller towns who hold you down, where you've been found, how deep they've been, the multiple men, strangleholds requisite to come upon a blacked out beach aquarium you're baptized in, much too young. And then I'm going to read two poems that we're kind of debating right now which one is going to be the broadside for this book. So one's called Crowded Lessons for Young Butterflies. First time you float inside some girl's dorm room, exchange quick goodbyes, nom de plume. It's clear her dom has used this place before. Assume he wants you on the floor. Instead, austere, he'll lend a hand, then find your throat as soon as you can stand. Against her fairy wall ephemera, soul remote, you will swoon for some blurring god Google exec who calls you princess, won't fuck you though he's erect. A god has limitations too. Ardor's much harder than he is for you. Collects wet-winged insects with an internet. Crowded lessons for young butterflies who never forget the first time they fly. The other poem that may or may not be the broadside, you'll have to wait and see. It's called We Are Fucking Happy. A steakhouse parking lot. First date. First dom will ask to tickle. You'll cooperate. A subtle nod, half-closed eyelids. His palms first touch your trembling ribs. Breathe against. Wait until fingertips pry paroxysms, open thighs, one hand around a throat, can't come until you will comply. Conditions, you are a pleasure, denied, he may grant, unexclusively to you, and then some friends. You could learn to like it, or you can hold it in. Behind a cervix, fingers strum. We are fucking happy, understand? A protocol practiced parking before brings college girls to his living room floor. And the last poem that's also from The Meadow, I only wrote recently. In fact, Tom, when he reviewed it, this wasn't in the book because it was actually prompt to me from a friend of mine, Justin Carter, who I just edited an anthology with, and we both love the movie Eyes Wide Shut, and he wanted to write something with me about that movie where I wrote from a woman's perspective and he wrote from a man's, and we were going to go back and forth, and I'm still waiting on my response. But this is what I wrote him, and it ended up in The Meadow. If you men only knew, for Alice and after Eyes Wide Shut, how eyes wide shut she waits for you, naked in narcissus, paper white, while you mask desire, hide in plain sight. Seek strange sacred rituals of lust, uninvited, bask at what you must. Risk life perchance to peer an addicted girl who'll disappear. Be fucked a dozen times by billionaires, while near a bevy beast tilt heads to stare. Unplucked bare bloom who stretches, wet, your bedroom towards sunlight, warmth, any touch you've ceased to look at very much, aches to be consumed in ceremonies with an unmasked beast. You seek Wonderland, if you only knew How Alice, naked, full of holes, seeks you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for leading us off this evening. And if you want to read more of Kristen's work, including keeping track of that great book, The Meadow, that's coming out from APUP Publications, you can follow Kristen on Twitter at Lola and Jolie, LOLAANDJOLIE. And you can find her website, Kristen, KRISTINGarth.com, some information about that upcoming book. And I'm very lucky to have two readers in a row whose awesome books forthcoming that I've gotten to review. Our next reader is a first-timer to performance anxiety, Candace Wheely. And Candace Wheely lives in Gunnison, Colorado, where she's a lecturer of English at Western Colorado University. She's the author of Death Industrial Complex, forthcoming from Action Books, which is a masterwork that I got to review recently for Empty Mirror as well. And Bound, which is from Inside the Castle Press in 2018, as well as several other chapbooks. So thank you so much, Candace, for being with us tonight. And take it away. I cannot wait to hear these poems.
Hey, thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me here and for the unbelievably amazing review that you wrote earlier this week. And thank you, Kristen, for reading. That was intense. That was awesome. The poem that I'm going to read from Molly is called The Flood. And it was, this is from a chapbook that she put out with Coconut. The Flood. Panic, because suddenly everything signifies. A kind of net of sunlight pulling all directions at once. The background's flaw is that it beckons. The poodle's boat, Noah's palm, the dove magnet. A barbarity, a flame at the vanishing point, where things trace back to one man's wanting, which is often the wrong thing for him altogether. So people drown. Their things emptied of humanness, made violent in the deaf water, became filth. Get used to it, Noah told his sons, drunk, sad as God. In a story, the first to die are the ones who don't tell stories. The rest fish in a soul that narrows, defensively, into a corridor that exists in the arc, into the awful future, half magnetic, half veil. And then I'm not sure if Molly wrote this for the Poetry Society of America or as a part of her, or as a part of the chapbook, but on the PSA, she writes a little essay after the poem. And I'm just going to read one paragraph that she wrote about this poem. She writes, "It's not that I like damage exactly. It's more that damaged things seem true. The good maintenance of a new or cared for thing is an artifice I want to see beneath. This isn't about death. Death is pretty clean, a clicking shut. It's life that rot belongs to. Survivors who see and smell the decay. This is living. It's a radical thing to accept." Yeah, and if you want to read that whole essay, it's on the Poetry Society of America with Molly's poem. So I'm going to switch over and read from my book that Tom mentioned and reviewed earlier, Death Industrial Complex from Action. The first poem that I'm going to read is called On Becoming an Angel. A bag over the head is iconic. If you are thinking only of fashion, who are you thinking for? When I was 13, I started writing with both hands at once so I could make something that touched itself in the middle. I became an angel. I put space between the letters of my name, and my identity was then entirely composed of light. This is why I swallowed a phone and pulled the cord through my throat and mouth. I'm close to you, Vince. When I replace my face with a circular mirror, you're inside me still. I'm not in love with you, Vince. I am convincing you that you are a body in a morgue acting as a patient in a hospital stuffed with doctors. When I was 13, I started writing with both hands at once so I could make something that touched itself in the middle. I became an alchemist. I made pure the Gothic deep inside the erotic to compose the world entirely of mirrors. I'm calling you because you are inside of me. I also need to tell Vince there's a jail built around the house. Francesca already knows. I can't tell yet if we are the same person. It has not become clear if my head really is the bag. Let's buy compression garments and see if we can squirm ourselves into the shape of each other. I also need to tell Vince the jail is actually built around the hospital. They are looking to isolate the contaminant that turns the skin into black striped hosiery. The pattern veils the eyeletted collars. They are looking to isolate and cure the anti-suckler, the color red. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't already feel squeezed. The ball python has a heart too. How hard have you ever thought about what is inside you? A goat has more than one stomach, an extra chamber to chew what wasn't chewn through and through. Ruminant. Vince, they can't touch that. Vince, they can't touch that. I also need to tell Vince the jail is actually built around the morgue. They is a rhetorical construction. Trick. The speaker is the audience. There is a woman walking through the corridors of the mortuary humming something that sounds like bubbles of air bursting on the water's surface. A mirror can redirect a beam of light, but it isn't interested in air. Something I did not see must have kissed me very softly. Did I want help? I do not think I wanted help. When they put my hand in the shock box, I was not shocked, but I learned what is a shock box, and I made one in my mouth. I think we are more afraid of monsters knowing our language than we are of knowing the language of the monster. I made the jailers listen. It is 1979, and I killed Mary Jane shoes. I killed little girl voices. I killed demurring. I said, I am actually all done with jail. I am now the gate. And then I'm just going to read one more short poem. But I do just want to mention that these poems are all written in response to photographs by the photographer Francesca Woodman, who died very young and made lots of stunning pictures in a short period of time. So this last poem is I think it's the very last poem that I wrote for the book. And the last poems came out kind of faded and warped. So I don't know if you can see, but they kind of come across the page in this different way. So this one's called Alpine Glow Astrophobia. When you've given up on everything else, try art one more time. I did autumn. I did it so the orange was as organic as blood at the base of the eyeball, a personal atom, split lip of the cosmos. I'm telling you, you have a universe to take care of, an idea for another way to add. I won't let them tell me I don't count. I'm backscatter as black hair under black lace, aerosol over the moon, bend fractured before the burnt fingertip from the lost lampshade. When you've given up, add extra. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Candace, for that and for this book, which I cannot, I hope that your to-read list just grows throughout this evening, including Kristen's book forthcoming. And again, that's Candace's book, Death Industrial Complex from Action Books. And you can find out more about Candace's work and keep track of that release date at CandiceWheely.com, CandiceWuehle.com. And you can also follow Candace on Twitter at Glitter Trash with 2 underscores at the end. So wow, this is such a heavy metal reading already. I'm digging it so hard, and it's my pleasure to kind of introduce another returner to performance anxiety, who I know will keep this vibe going. Sarah O'Brien, another person who's holed up in Boston with me at this time. So Sarah O'Brien is the author of Shapeshifter, her first full-length poetry collection. She's the founder and editor-in-chief of Boston Accent Lit. You can learn more about her work at www.sarahobrien, SARAHOBRIEN, FLUENT.org. And you can follow Sarah on Twitter and Instagram at fluent_sarcasm, SARACASM. Thanks so much for being with us again, Sarah. Take it away.
Thank you. I'm going to start with Molly's poem, and you'll hear someone else's reading of this later on in Performance Anxiety tonight. In the morning, before anything bad happens. The sky is open all the way. Workers upright on the line like spokes. I know there is a river somewhere, lit, fragrant, golden mist, all that, whose irrepressible birds can't believe their luck this morning and every morning. I let them riot in my mind a few minutes more before the news comes. I just think that's a very powerful and relevant poem, and I'm really honored to read it tonight. With all of you wonderful poets, it's really an honor to be reading with all of you. So this is from Shapeshifter, and it's going to be a little bit more available soon. Right now, you can only get a copy by directly contacting me, but soon I'll hopefully have copies available online. So this is called Sound Effects. You know I'm sentimental because I'm Facebook friends with someone I had oral sex with at a boring club in Italy's forgotten city. You can tell I'm a Leo because I gave my last coin to a homeless Roman, then put it in a poem. When no one's watching, do you skip around naked? I hope you did yesterday. We take the tourist route, wrongly convinced we are undeserving of the scenery. And now I will read just a few poems from my chapbook, Dancing on a Dead-End Street. And this is available on gumroad.com/Sarah O'Brien. This is called Right Back Soon. With the slightest dusting of snow, Cody is whimpering by the door. He won't eat when I'm upstairs because of his abandonment issues. This is irrelevant to you, still in a queen-size bed, murmuring, twirling hair around your pretty finger. I'm not saying a yellow bowl with a spoon, resting in a puddle of milk, is super urgent. I'm not saying my coffee's newsworthy in its floral mug. I'm saying I haven't seen your smile in a while. When we touch, I'm heading up the incline of a roller coaster, and if we ever kiss, well, you'll be a good kisser, and I'll be toast, I'll be melted butter. I guess you'd better keep your distance. I thought that was appropriate with the social distancing happening right now. And now I'll read Silent Treatment in Salem. You say only my first name. We agree to get on with it. Let pretense powder to dust at the graveyard by my apartment, where bodies rot for non-crimes. I'm beginning to begin as if for the first time. You roll your eyes when I try to sound wise, but you're turned on. It's hard to hide. We order sandwiches to go and take them by the water. You rub wealth potion on my wrist, sex potion on your own. Everything triggers us dreamers. I finger my obsidian. You pet a stray cat. Mute fear. Let desire speak. That's better. And this last one is very short. It's called Hometown. It's 2:22, and I'm thinking about you. You're so greedy, and I love that. The way you turn around in a room, replacing my memories with image of your mocking grin. Okay. I like places with character, with strange stories and chipped paint. Of course I do. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to read tonight. It's great to see you all and hear your voices.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And again, if you want to find more of Sarah's work, you can find her on Twitter and on Instagram at fluent_Sarah, S-A-R-A, Chasm, C-A-S-M. And I just really want to point out that Sarah is kind of the editor-in-chief and founder and brains behind Boston Accent Lit, whose anniversary issue is coming out soon. So look out for that. Boston Accent's an incredible publication, and we're lucky to have it. So thanks for being here, Sarah, and for working on that to share with us. And I'm really excited to introduce our next reader, who has been giving the best vibes in the Skype video of applauding for all of our other readers so far, and I love that. And I'm just very happy to have him back on Performance Anxiety. This is C.T. Salazar, who is a Latinx poet and librarian from Mississippi. He's the author of This Might Have Meant Fire and American Cave Wall Sonnets, forthcoming in 2021 from Bull City Press. He's a candidate for a master's in information and archiving sciences. So CT, thank you, and now you deserve the applause after these poems.
Thanks, Tom. So I'll start off with Molly's poem. And this is by far my favorite from Molly Brodak. This is Landscape. Milk, St. Augustine said, comes not from the cow. The cow needs, he said, grass and water, out of which, he said, comes milk. He didn't understand matter, but it is true anyway. And wind works like beauty works, not attached to what it moves. Beyond matter, no one makes it. It just sweeps through a landscape, a painting of a landscape. Yellow crescent moon tipped up like a boat, a single radiant planet below. Grief just sweeps through, an awareness below, a composite awareness attached to time, starving, rootless on purpose, drawing its likeness. And so this poem has a little bit of Spanish in it. So it has the word quemame, which is Spanish for burn me, and it's the opening poem to This Might Have Meant Fire. So this is a parable about changing my name plus an elegy. The cotton field on fire looks like sunflowers, somehow caught between praise and persecution. Field of saints aflame, horizon gone godless, the sky black with devotion. The prophets knew the body had to break to become part of God's alphabet, how the O in the middle of devotion looks like a gunshot through a bird too colorful to be native. How heat withers the leaves to curled surrender. When I change my name this time, it's Abednego. It's the boy whose greatest miracle was not needing an apology from the burner. Abednego, the body, foreigner to the furnace. If I am too colorful to be native, if my smoke is sweet, Kemame, inherited name, Kemame, blood, in the restless shape of my family, Kemame, second tongue I keep in my mouth. Elegy, come cracked, come crawling cobblestone, come with enough to drag yourself through this old drought with its new name. Come alive, come break the dishes of the dead. Come because you can't stay, because there's no vessel for you to weep into anymore. Because all day I've had to pretend you're not the dried out moth stuck in the hymnal. Come call me your teacup, your copper coffee ring left sitting on the windowsill. Come in the hours my mother has flowers in her hair. Come watch her pull long stem miracles from behind her ear and bring the vase she needs. Come lilies, lilacs, lifetimes of petals on the dining room table. Come willing to look the afternoon in the eyes, the blue shape of pity. Come cloud, come pregnant with rain. Let's see. And this poem is from a series of poems where, like, love letters written from objects who are inherently built for destruction. So this is Love, Circular Saw Blade. And this is the last one I'll read. In the field, the last cricket of summer declared itself the size of my faith, my fever like a dog's mouth, the bird in the dog's mouth safe against a tongue with no vocabulary for want. We hold so much in our mouths, but there's always room for loneliness. When the holy acre said, you too will find your place between flower and fang, I knew our country was destined to capsize. Nothing but oil to give the sunken garden. When we lie down, I am the field and you are the fog. Here, I found a corner of the world where scientists are still searching the ocean floor for a boat named God, who will forgive the invasive beetle species hollowing out the redwoods in the west before he considers my destructions. I love you. I say your name all the time when you're not around just to put more of you in the world, but the fruit are growing teeth. The dogs are running in the field as if it were an opera house they wanted to burn down. There's this thing spinning in me. It could chew through the piano of my childhood or any other shape grief hardens into. The boat named God remains unfound, but there's a small fish trapped inside it, a blue one, like a heart, 30 times too small. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CT. That was marvelous, and your poems were marvelous, and your reading of Molly's poem was really beautiful. Again, that was CT Salazar, who you can find on Twitter at CTSALAZAR_. And look out for This Might Have Meant Fire and American Cave Wall Sonnets from Bull City Press next year. Our next reader is another first-time performance anxiety reader, ZM Wise. So ZM Wise, since he stumbled at the 50-word limit, he is the following, the 50-word bio limit. Poet, author, singer, songwriter, lyricist, co-editor at Transcendent Zero Press, essayist, occasional voice actor, occasional playwright, seldom screenwriter, bibliophile, animal, music lover, intersectional feminist, Illinois native, and old soul. With that introduction, ZM, I'm so excited to hear your poems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Perfectly.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Tom and Kristen for this golden opportunity. And it's quite an honor to be in the company of you wonderful word wielders, and it's definitely a huge honor and privilege. Going to start off with Molly's poem first, and this piece, I don't even know how to describe it. It definitely captivated my soul, and it feels like we are one with it. And this piece is called Kin. And ships appeared, nearly not, just wisps, iffy membranes. Time's whole hinge squawks privately. She sees them, and the island changes hands. Petrels shriek and break time, shriek and break. Some city approaches out of the waves, she chided herself. Surely not. The foam of fronds bristled shoreward, attending. Hi! The flesh of the story, the actual men, come to sow their bottomless delusion. She rises, dusts her knees. A black fruit drops in her trunk as if snipped, quaking thunderhead. At night, beach peeled away in wind. She dreamed the continent was measured in knives. The ships grew. Cells comb selves but never touch. A boot floats on skeletal coast. Tubs of ship biscuits parade ashore, flanked by black rats and nude amens. Fog walled them away from the bank of unchristian trees, flag drooping with repellent electrons. This their moment, a bit weak. Processing a sunnier thrust, the priest scribbles, time made into a fence. That's storytelling. Poor and simple, the past isn't, nor are we those thugs. The beach powders the conquistadors, a dirty papoose, a rill rising. To sun, the key banner, they point their black alabaster branches. This their moment have they fumbled by not shooting. Our hosts, I'm told, they can't imagine me. They stand forever before the gulf. They go into the gulf. They stand across from unrecognizable kin who came in quiet possession. It was written. So, I have a few pieces here. This one is from my upcoming book that'll be published within the coming months by Cherry House Press, and it's pretty much dedicated to my home state of Illinois. Ironically, it's Texas pride that gave me this this pride for where I'm from, and it was very, very inspirational indeed. And while all of them aren't completely, well, I should say directly related to the state itself, sort of has a Midwestern feel, I suppose you could say. So this is called Silver-Tongued Winter Poem. It was published in the winter edition of Truly You. Father Winter has blessed us with a superfluous barrage of dancing ice crystals from above, skylight, as dentine as the hair of the ancient storytellers and bards, as dentine as the eyes of one who has seen the most presentable of truths, as dentine as a face of fright. Catch a quilt-patterned flake on your silver tongue of glass-protected knowledge. Listening to you speak whilst the wheeling wind howls ferociously is like the daunting task of gaining valid factoids. Amidst the blizzard of 2000, there we were, my dear peers, creating an angelic military on the neighborhood concrete. Your observations of clear white skies were the scientific notions we both needed on this wintry day. Fellow Wendigo waits for next victim in the stillness of Simon's silence. Every holiday legend awakens for an annual visit to the decent-hearted and able-minded. Could not believe it when spring's cornered shadow completely melted my tender heart of chains. And then this piece was recently published in the Blake Jones Review, and it's called Infinite Structure of Ink on Blank Pages of Vibrating Sand. Wow, that might need to shorten that title to more than a mouthful of pretzels. All right. Ambitious creature, I know you from a foreseen road. You would perform imperfect love ballads as reflected from gowns of a river swan. Catching prey in glass spider webs woven from an arachnid kiln, it was blown in the fashion of mythology's image, scarred by its own accord and binding will. Hello, have a poem. Eat these words which I command you this day to teach the descendants to believe in no one but themselves, to surpass the serpents of sorrow, to exceed the elephants of elation, to merge with their elemental guardians. Gods for sale, goddesses for resale, deities immortalized beyond the pale, deities become mortal only to be impaled. Infinite structure of ink on blank pages of vibrating sand, kinetic particles moving and grooving to the beat of myth-poea's song. Let nature's bygones be gone, let nature's bystanders stand, let nature's passers-by pass. I love you, half who I do not require. Let us enter love-stained sheets and retire. Goodbye. Give me back my poem. And then last but not least, this is a piece which was published in Neon Mariposa, and it's the title and seminal piece from a book of erotic poetry, or poems and songs with a spiritual twist that I wrote a couple of years back. I'm hoping to get that published quite soon. Naomi's Mirror. She is unavailable, crystal moon woman, girl who licks glass in ecstasy. Her tongue becomes shards and she melts into magenta puddles smelling of jasmine and other earthen fragrances. She is emotionally unavailable, uneven star formation lady, forcefully reminded of trauma sans recollection of incidents. An earthquake within, tremors do not cease until memory of his unwanted touch fades. She loves it when you tell her what is on her mind, illustrious illusions, delectable delusions. She is physically unavailable, platinum sun girl, touching herself until the mouth of flames consumes her completely from gushing inner heat exhaustion. Coming to astral realization. She cannot be anyone without herself awake. She is spiritually unavailable, dreaming neon prism goddess, transforming herself into doppelganger strangers. Assists in the snow-blind quest to find herself before the fleet of scarlet battleships conduct her hasty trial. And all the while she laughs with gusto, lacking an audience, changes in her tone through sung Eastern ballads, indulges in the sciences of day, drinking night potion. 'Tis time to come home to her consciousness and reflect. She refuses to be silenced, liberation-fighting femme. A battle axe of speeches wins the open fist-fighting tournament. Egalitarian for life, her dream spheres rise and set in unison, motions of perfection. With one voice of solidarity, she crosses her eyes and sees only a checkered past. Never under the knife's mercy. Her weaponry is lyrical and remains unchallenged. Sensitive to any blinding and deafening touch, she expels the ringing bells of anti-shame, reverberating off of cathedral stone entrances, synagogue stained-glass sanctuaries, mosque floor carpets rising and conquering, neo-pagan forest soil vibrations. She is a shadow of my disoriented figure. She is an echo of my amplified echo. She is a conscience of my ear's reception, takes the form of vermilion mist, the particles of summer sunflowers dancing on the eyes of innocent temple attendees. Everything they know is written in patriarchal tablets, knowing nothing of the victorious other sides. She bathes in the spoils earned from mental wars. For every apocalyptic day in her head is a victory. 'Tis time to return home to glass backward replica and reflect. Thank you very much. Poetry lives. Long live the arts.
Wow, thank you, ZM, for that kinetic reading and for bringing out a side of Molly's work in Kin that is really epic in contradistinction to the lyrical, I think. And thank you for bringing that. And if you'd like to find more of ZM's work, you can find ZM on Twitter at ZMWisePoet, all one word. Also, his debut play, Bottles of Emerald for the Demon Queen, was recently released, and that sixth book of poetry, Illinois Infinitarium, will be released by Cherry House Press within the next month or so. Any other information you can find at zmwise.wixsite.com/zmwise, the poet. So in the second half of our reading order, we have another returner to the performance anxiety scene, who I want to thank for being extremely communicative and giving performance anxiety some awesome feedback over the time he's been involved. This is Tucker Lieberman. And Tucker Lieberman just published 10 Past Noon, a biography of a writer who died in 1940 at age 39. Tucker lives in Colombia. He wrote a poetry chapbook about friendship and loss that is still seeking a publisher, and he designed a writing journal called Flip the Finger at Despair. Thank you so much for being back on Performance Anxiety, Tucker. I look forward to hearing what you're sharing with us tonight.
Thank you, Tom, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm also so glad to be introduced to Molly's work in such a powerful format, although, of course, I wish it were under better circumstances. Her poetry is really powerful, and this one I want to read, called Net Web. It means something different every single time I read it. And I don't want to describe it because I don't want to impose something on it, when she is not here to do so. And she wrote this poem to speak for itself. But since it means something different every single time I read it, I'm just going to read it and we're going to see how it comes out this time. It's called Net Web, and it's published in The All, which is a publication on Medium. You can find it online. I land fully formed like a cherub. Nothing pleases me, you least of all, with your fingers poking their grime on dreams. Behind thick drapes, my code is plain and can't account for your dismal nerves. Twitchy joys and wounds. This is what you wanted. Guarantee of unplumbable lake. Forget you are greatly eased or disturbed by smells, where and how your nerves directly touch the air. Here, you will always have everyone wherever you go. That's Molly's poem, Net Web. From my own work, I'd like to read a couple paragraphs from my book, 10 Past Noon. This is what it looks like with the train on the cover. The subtitle is Focus and Fate at 40, and it's about someone who died at age 39. It's something I'm thinking about in part because I'm turning 40 in a couple weeks, and I'm exactly the same age as Molly was. My biographical subject in this book is named Ned, and it's a nonfiction book. I do write a lot of poetry. This is technically prose, although it's experimental prose, so I like to think it's poetic. On my better days, it's an aspiration to write poetically. I'll just read a couple chapters from it. I don't know what was happening to Ned in 1940. Did he have a job change, a relationship change, a medication change? Did he have a paycheck at all? Or was he deliberately blowing the last of his money on a greater sense of independence by helping his family maintain a second apartment? Was he living alone? Was he talking to his family? Was he spending a great deal of time buried in his manuscript? After all, he did have a few sources dated in the mid to late 30s. Or did he leave his manuscript in a corner of his room where the hulk of it sat, staring at him, threatening to mold? Around lunchtime, I imagine, Ned left the apartment on West 116th Street, ran 6 blocks down Amsterdam, past his old graduate school in engineering at Columbia University and the Episcopal Cathedral of St. John the Divine, turned right, and ran 1 long block to Broadway to the train station at 110th Street. The fare would be a nickel. If he only had a dime, it was not a problem. At that intersection, there was a Horn and Hardart's Automat restaurant where the machine slots took 1 nickel per food item, and he could ask a nickel thrower to change his large coin for 2 small ones. The employees were always brewing coffee. Ned might want the coffee to taste like the Newmarks at Deep Springs, but those days wouldn't come back. He could drink a coffee or not. He would still have a leftover nickel for the trip. The path is not always. Sometimes it doubles back. Sometimes the ground is shiny, reflective, a black mirror of sorts, except where the leaves have papered it over. Little bubbles of methane pop through slowly. It's a tar pit. It will suck you in. The tar pit is a chronotope that is the very opposite of an escaping hot air balloon. If your feet are stuck in the tar pit, you cannot tap your heels and go back to Kansas, ever. As Heinrich Wilhelm Olbers posed the paradox in 1823, how fortunate that the earth does not receive starlight from every point of the celestial vault, for then we would only ever see a sky full of light, white text on a black background, photostats overprinting photostats, until there are only words and no more context. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Tucker. That's a really, really amazing piece of, and I agree, it is poetic as the aspiration stands. And if you want to read more of Tucker's work, including 10 Past Noon that he just read from, you can find him on Twitter at Tucker Lieberman, TuckerLieberman, and you can also find more about the books and about his writing journal at tuckerlieberman.com.
Thank you.
So our next reader, thank you. Our next reader coming up is Joe Yanni, and Joe is a poet and performance artist from Toronto and a very good friend of mine. Thanks, Joe. I can't wait to hear what you've got this evening.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody. It's really nice to lay in bed and listen to you, all of you. These 2 first ones are for Noel Cocott. Smitten with neither wisdom or coherence, he collected stones that would remind him of Julia in case she ever went on ahead of him. Ones with tiny flecks of blue. He knew he'd miss her someday, even if she was right in front of him. The morning got caught in the way of his coffee, and the advertisements all seemed to be begging it to rain. Icarus knew the sky was not interested in answering, so he dived into Will's poem, which one day Julia read with an excitement inexplicable, having just got home from a good friend's funeral. The weather that day couldn't be any better. And here's the next one. During the plague, we grew our fingernails long and useful. We stopped seeing a difference between animals and pet names. We learned what color each wood burnt after the paint was stripped. Havel sat by the fire of purple ash, telling stories as apologies for his ill temperament. He said, "One day we'll get sick of moving the same way as we got sick of being still, and hopefully we don't get sick of each other." Just then, Wind, feeling pathetic, kicked up flames and danced around the pit. They took it as a sign, but it's a lie we tell ourselves to feel again when we've been inside too long. What's the opposite of a sunburn? This next poem was written after having a wonderful conversation with Tom. It's called "Here Are All the Ways I Know I Am Dangerous." There is a blankness about me, something to do with facial hair. I'm aware of what's like unaware. I ask big questions too early. My secret ability to tread water. I'm like a butter knife that likes butter knives. The dirt I keep under my nails. That I handle myself uncertainly. I know you never know. I will hug you and ask why. Why? I say things like an accident is an accident until it's not an accident. I'm comfortable leaving things unfinished. And this last one is for Molly. Molly, I'm sorry I didn't know you. You wrote really wicked poems. And man, here's the cipher. A non-believer accepts a kind of fog around facts. Believers demand meaning. Beloved fog forms a tissue between them like love. Burns off in bald light like love. Non-believers just put on their war wigs and their war gloves and pick from a fan deck of brute facts. To prove nothingness exists, you need just one thing that was not itself, one X that did not equal X, one cusp of elders in one dim dusk that was none of the above. Souls are made up of such obstacles. And a non-believer accepts that God is very, very likely. Because nothingness is just not how brute facts work. A rainstorm, brute fact, shuttles brainlessly towards us, and in our evening is overtaken in rain and fog, infinity, the opposite of engineering. I listened to some invisible bird rattling off the facts of consciousness. He used that exact word, cipher. Thanks, everybody. Really having a great time listening to you. Take care.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you so much for sharing that reading of Molly's poem. It's really awesome to see how much her negative capability resonates with your own. And if you want, as I have had the privilege to read some of Joe's poems in draft form when he posts them on Twitter or Instagram or elsewhere, you can find him there at WTF is a Poet. And that is, Gus reminding me that we have to get to the next reader, which is who is Kendall A. Bell. And Kendall A. Bell's poetry has been most recently published in Dark Marrow and Crep and Pen. He was nominated for Sundress Publications' Best of the Net collection in 2007, 2009, 2011, 2012, 13, 15, and 18. He's the author of 2 full-length collections, The Roads Don't Love You and The Forced Hush of Quiet, and 25 chapbooks. He's the publisher and editor of Maverick Duck Press and editor and founder of Chanterelle's Notebook. His chapbooks are available through Maverick Duck Press, and he lives in southern New Jersey. Thank you for being here, Kendall, and thank you for publishing some of the books that we've heard work from tonight.
Thanks for having me, Tom. I hope everybody can hear me. I believe I'm unmuted.
Oh, yep, you're good.
All right, great. So I'm going to save Molly's for last so everybody can suffer through mine first. Um, let's start with this one. These are all mostly new poems. It's called My Chest Has Become a Library Filled with You. And it feels right to have a book burning, an exorcism of every word you've put to paper. This is when I want to wake and have amnesia, when I want to rip my rib cage wide open and tear out these lungs that breathed in the sound of your voice, that held back and exhaled just to keep you inside of me a little longer. When I am most needy, I bury myself beneath every volume of you, in the hopes of being consumed by your unkept promises. This is a later poem, and something that I wrote recently, very recently. It's called Sunblown. Your heart is a metronome, is a pendulum, is the quickening strum of guitar strings. These things are expected to keep ticking, are both lifeline and echoing chest songs. Your skin is dry in Alabama heat. Tears are myth, are an empty vase, are barren ducts, a river scorched and left only with the crust of salt. These pills will keep you vertical, will keep you tweeting, will keep you writing and writing. You, of the soft twang, you, a jar of fireflies at midnight, girl. You, keeping me alight. Often I write poems that start with the titles or of songs or lines from songs. And this is from a lyric by Anna Turnheim, the title anyway. Leave the body, leave the mind. All voices have vacated this crumbling structure, have given way to darkened suburbia. What is left is the rattle of insides, the low hum of streetlights. The one voice that remains is the keepsake, the childhood carryover, the only constant in a shrinking universe immersed in a stellar explosion. You are the obligatory phone call put off, the holiday card rotation dropout. Legacy is a fallacy of ego, a closet of old shoes and gently worn sweaters in a thrift shop. You are a haunted estate sale, pieces auctioned off to the lowest of bidders. Again, from a song, this title, and it references Billie Eilish. It's called I Had a Dream, I Got Everything I Wanted. And my feet weren't tied to the bottom of this capsized ship, and your hands were reaching for mine through the slow motion of the current, and my body was a helium balloon floating in the glimmer of your flaxen hair, and your eyes never divert their gaze from me, and the sweetness of your skin almost consumes me. I had a dream, and it finally wasn't a nightmare, and I wasn't tumbling over a railing, and my body didn't jolt and twitch, and I did not bristle at every touch, and the words were an unraveling, and the curve of your chin was a revelation, and our bodies fit like puzzle pieces, and I knew that I was dying, and it was the perfect set of end credits because it was ours. And the last one I'll do is called Your Permanent Satellite. In the moment our bodies vacated the galaxy we both inhabited again for such a brief moment, the dark pools of your eyes glanced to me, the corners of your perfect mouth in an upturn. You uttered words you would bat away from me had I said them, despite the sincerity I hid so thinly. I felt my face in a glow, kept my eyes to the floor, and lobbed a response from the surging muscle in my chest. Unveiled all I had interred in your absence, wanting desperately to gather you, to cup your face in my hands, to rest my head against yours, and stay your permanent satellite. Okay, and this is the Molly Brodak poem, which Sarah read earlier. In the morning before anything bad happens. The sky is open all the way. Workers upright on the line like spokes. I know there is a river somewhere, lit, fragrant, golden mist, all that, whose irrepressible birds can't believe their luck this morning and every morning. I let them riot in my mind a few minutes more before the news comes.
Thank you very, very much, Kendall, for that reading of Molly's poem and of your own work. And if you'd like to find out more about Kendall's work, you can find Kendall on Twitter at @KAshleyBell, KASHLEYBELL. And you can find his latest collection called The Forced Hush of Quiet at KendallABell.com or at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. I love that poem of Molly's, and I love the chiasmus of hearing it twice in this reading. We're getting to our last couple of readers, and I'm excited to introduce another newcomer to Performance Anxiety, whose book Information Blossoms I loved. This is Ryan Bree, and Ryan Bree is the Piscean dreamer poet currently residing in St. Louis, Missouri, and he wishes to bless all his readers with a mysterious grace that they can carry with them. He's the author of Information Blossoms, out on Expat Press, and observer of that feeling you sometimes get. Ryan, thanks so much for being here with us. I loved your book, and I can't wait to hear stuff from it.
Thanks, Tom. I'm going to start with Molly's poem, Motto Dix. In Exodus, Moses is hidden in a cleft behind God's hand, begging, and he sees, rushing past him, God's back diminishing. Moses stops begging. God's back is black fog. I know. He, we guess, means to do it, to do all of this. The brute center part of an iridescent moth, the carnation against the man. I love how that poem ends, just like trailing off into something, I don't know. I'm going to read Polygon Cathedral American Poetry from Information Blossoms. Here I am standing with my body in Polygon Cathedral. The mechanical force of its emptiness surges among the cybernetic light of rigid colored windows and the unsounding organ within me. Now I am sitting, here my unfurled eyelids exposed to 62, furiously counted one September, miles between them, and the pupils, the dark, transparent mounds that birth and devour earthy irises incessantly. Pixels of borrowed window seep into the 62 and torment the cloudy figures there, the gods of walking down the stairs and digging a hole and finding things you've never seen and putting things you've never seen into the ground with quick bursts of light. It is outside now, there are friends to talk to, and everything is green or gray. I can look at this animal before me, being American poetry, firm and shadowy, while a harsh, intangible landscape flickers in my eyes. This is Orpheus Mindwater. Sleep advertised on my eyelids in the night, raindrop, pentagon, and flower storm pickup, painted highways break down the chlorine, nasal insulation for all the dream chaser children. You let God insist upon you, he brought you down the river, where he handed you over to big television dramas. I've been a loud coconut, drink me daringly, darling, freezer-framed disco, you fallopian bullet. Your quotidian cups are excised like the mango. Liquidate me, stupid. You giant psychedelic pig. You got it in you like a waffle that flies into Japan. Airwaves are always on for the big allure. Steer the snare like Orpheus Mindwater into the definition of a sweet vanilla sunrise. This one's a pretty long one. I don't know how much time do I have left.
Oh, you have like 3 minutes, but also I've never stopped poetry before.
All right. This is called Form Gallons. Momentous wire doves, you call a tune mango, unreal mountain glowing in time. Aren't I tree-like? In this simulation, a leaf means treason. Monkey abrasion and lullaby highway, your wings wing blue like angelic Jones. Scrumptious darling, my lonely crow jumps 3 times, Bellissima Belfast. Unknown undulations, big brain brothers, the sun tied me down with gallons of paperwork. Light workers unite and flake under the unborn, cold, unborn morning claws really into derailed false skin. Lint auguries, splint ovaries, January time, location time. Repeat the warrant your hands are on. Second reason wine turns off, must rebel against 20 lock keys. Jamboree in the weirdest belly, fundamental swish hair, and clunk traps, mirthless display of rudimentary dolls, amalgamation of Ruth. Dead bouquet, almost plangent in wet cement, koi comets, your glove compartments shine, 9,000s. Ziggurat stick, you hit Albert with a strange path. Comically, I dove into Poltergeist Lake with my bulls pocketed. Funny bone wanderer, you destroy the Oppenheimer sunset with your numb blade, your hip calendar, your street sentimental, your blow by blow. We have to envy Princess Barnacle. What's all this? Can it come down to a random buffet? Can we harness the good time, oblivion pup? All thinking things know about you and your zooming epiglottis apologies. Why bitter? We banter godlike in the godless dream. The party. Video games are too claustrophobic for the party. Uranium criminals flash too liquid for the party. The party finds you. Manipulate more poppies than the party originates. The party finds you. It was good being blind with you. Poem if it asks for your hand across expressions of tormented and so angelic dances, explaining sweetheart requests stained glass drum kits with sounds of appliance fervor. If Guardian displays a butterfly too soft, we will street out and tenderize a photograph of bliss together, praying like a dreadful cupcake, swan wife in the inexplicable blouse reaction, boyish offspring with dares like lightning color, southern fields that levitate, touches the universe, touches the pudding that names us lovely. All right, I'm finished with those. So thanks for having me, Tom, and everyone else that read.
Thank you so much, Ryan, and thank you for sharing from that book. That book, again, is Information Blossoms, which is out from Expat Press, so you can find it at expatpress.com, and you can find more of Ryan's work at Ryan Bree Tweet. So it's Ryan, RYAN _Bree, 2 underscores, and then TWEET tweet. So we have arrived at one of our last scheduled readers for the evening, Dominic Knowles. And Dominic Knowles is a non-binary poet, union steward, and PhD candidate, as well as the poetry editor of Protean magazine. They have written essays for Viewpoint and Modernism/Modernity, and their poems have been featured in or are forthcoming from Paint Bucket, Marls Karks, and Glass. Dominic shared their work with us earlier this evening via recording, so I'm going to set that up to play back in just a moment.
Hadal Zone in the age of deindustrialization. There's a smokestack at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. There are people there, and goodbyes, and tendon-long whispers. Industrial glitter scales of disbelief and the Abad splitting open like a clam. We blame it on the free market. We blame it on the grammar of surfaces, while on the ruined sea floor of fish rots from the head down, dreaming of the wide disease at the precise moment when capital starts to drown us. My boss denies me a raise, and the cops find him at the bottom of the trench, sucking on smokestacks and screeching out mating calls to an ancient sea devil. He looks like a blind machine sleepwalking off the edge of a motel balcony. If the motel balcony was a tectonic plate and drowned men could sleepwalk. O pond eater, O lemon whirler, O deep sea shift manager, read the moon back to me. Give what's left of its light a name. Terraform the waves with the density of wage theft. Like moon rose. Half moon rising like a like moon rose. Dusk cooling a clamshell of dust that settles around the earth, and the dusted earth flinches. See the beveled Medford moon, risen like a dish of yellowed bone, or a piece of amber come loose from the sky. Trace its beams past the Maoists who shiver cooking beans for the shivering poor, the stalks of traffic signs detonating light, past the gorgeous chemical stench of car wash mist, down to the gurgling, cop-laden bowels of I-95, and upward, careening along its endless highway spine to New Jersey, where cicadas shake their tambourines in the maple trees. And I'm cleaning my grandfather's eyeglasses on my shirt, shaving him, scything the tines of his chin with a razor blade. His toes are baby carrots, swollen with the fluids that will choke him to death. Then they choke him to death. And I want to kiss his coffin, to kiss his coffin, his coughing a kiss that told me to grow majestic and old, with skin like wet sandpaper folded over my shoulder bones, patient and weathering loneliness as place, whether loneliness was place or an accident of consciousness, until the half moon rises like a like moon rose, the sky aching after purple acid snow, and the tambourines shake, though the maple trees froze. Rosemary Tourniquet for Sean Bonney. No, not the wish for the downfall of the Western world, but the downfall itself arrives. A rosemary tourniquet wrapped around its forearm. Songbirds nesting in the winter of its sixth extinction's chest. Below, the riot crawls like a toddler out of its wage crib, and songbirds fly in cemetery arcs above the coup and its calligraphers. The downfall of the Western world stutters when it speaks of land reform and lithium, mouthing vowels so distended they turn cows to villanelles, hurl a gibbous moon at the money form. Before the downfall of the Western world, my mother welded her meals from scraps. Now she walks in I-ams towards the kitchen sink, and the sun sets like an old bruise in the moment of all plenitude. To fix the price of bread, she says, set blaze to business schools. Sun by Molly Brodak. A split second before waking, I see myself. Remember there were rotting watermelons and a turtle emerging into sun, its awful tail. Fat birds nestled into understories. Your goodness, a firm arm in the air. A million leaves moving, my reptile brain. It is a bad way to think about time, time is. All old stories say the new stories are wrong. This is how a thing becomes old. Diamonds below the lower basalts in black hum aimlessly. The little grasses say, ha.
That again was Dominic Knowles sharing the recordings of their poems and also of Molly's poem Sun. And you can find Dominic on Twitter at Pastel Cathedral, PastelCathedral. And you can find, again, more of Dominic's work at Protean, where they are the poetry editor, and the essays at Viewpoint, the poems in Paint Bucket, Marl Sparks, Protean, and the Living Journal, which is a really wonderful collaborative poetry project that I hope you have a chance to check out. So we are coming to our last reader of the evening, very last, and I'd like to thank everyone for sharing their work and Molly's tonight. It's made all the difference for me, at least, as we as a human community continue to navigate this unprecedented time. Before we close with exactly one more poem, I'd like to let you all know that Performance Anxiety will enter a special schedule for the next few weeks where instead of having readings monthly, as we usually do, we're going to hold them every Thursday until it stops being sustainable for us to do so. So if you'd like to share your work at a coming reading, please get in touch with Kristen or myself, or you can message us directly through the Performance Anxiety Twitter at performance, PERFORMANCEANXT, because that was available. We'd be delighted to have you on as soon as we can. So thank you so much again for listening and for giving this past hour of your life over to poetry. To close our reading this evening, usually I read something at the end, but this here is a recording, I think his first in a reading capacity, which is really exciting for us, by Giacomo Pope, who's the wonderful editor and person who runs Neutral Spaces. He's also the curator of Screaming Into a Horse's Mouth, which is you can find at screamingintoahorsesmouth.com, no apostrophe. And there he published 3 of Molly's last published poems. And Jack was really, I was on Skype with him earlier today, just talking about what it was like to get to know Molly through her work. And it means a lot to me that Jack trusted us with this recording and that he's kind of gave us okay, sorry, I'm okay, I promise, to share it with you. So we're going to end with this poem that Jack recorded. And thank you again for being here.
The body of knowledge about the sun. Some matter just turned around very slowly to regard itself. Crows barked in every direction for hundreds of years. Where are we right now? Someone asked in the workshop. Who is the you? Matter bonded and no one knows why. To violently and permanently separate it, well, imagine how the painters were once forced to paint the sun. Rothko said to stand 18 inches from his paintings in order to see them. The sun is unviewable. No consolation, no menacing spirit. It gives everything. Still, we paint it.